Kyle Shanahan and John Lynch's seats may not be hot yet, but they're definitely warming up. What's up? Welcome to this morning's 49ers update. We're your hosts, Cohn and Tyler LaRocca. From what I've been told, from what I'm hearing, Kyle Shanahan and John Lynch got a little bit of a talking to, and their seats may not be hot, but there's temperature. There's a little bit of a heat. There's a little bit of warmth accumulating underneath their cheeks. So let's talk about that today. But before we do, we all watched Sam Darnold have another really freaking good game last night. And I think it's the question has probably crossed all of our minds at this point. Did the Niners keep the wrong quarterback?
Yeah, man. I mean, it's definitely a question. I know most Niners fans, including myself, will probably say, no, because that was my biggest thing is Kyle couldn't. I was actually talking to Ryan on Twitter, Ryan Hensley on Twitter about this, is Kyle couldn't get this out of him either. He played week 18 with the Rams, 17 against the Rams last year, and he didn't look good preseason. A lot of people thought Trey Lance beat Darnold out last year, besides Lombardi. But
I was one of them, actually.
Yeah.
To me, what I thought Darnold did in training camp was just check down relentlessly. Like, I'm not going to throw a pick today. I'm not going to make any mistakes. Maybe that's what he needed to do to rebuild his confidence, like not make mistakes for a while. I don't know. I didn't see it.
Or maybe what he needed was KOC to say, dude, you have Justin Jefferson and Jordan Addison. Like, let it rip.
Also, he has a ton of time to throw.
Yeah, he does have a great offensive line, which he did not have with us. He also has Justin Jefferson, which we could have had, but he did not have with us.
True.
But yeah, I mean, that's where you had a take that I actually really liked, which was the Niners should gamble on Zach Wilson next year for their backup. And I completely agree with that because I think he's a Sam Darnold story, right? Undisciplined on the Jets, kind of bumbled around. I feel like Zach Wilson didn't get nearly enough time as Darnold either, though. And who knows, man? What if he's the next Darnold Geno project where he just needed a good place to go, a good place to be with good weapons and good coaching?
Are the Niners a good place to be anymore? That's the question, though. It's like,
for a quarterback, that's a good question.
Because like the offensive line is in shambles. Kyle's offensive scheme isn't hitting like it used to.
Yeah.
A lot of the weapons are getting old. Christian McCaffrey, don't know. So, I mean, like when Darnold came here 2 years ago, this was like the sort of like quarterback rehab camp.
Yeah.
And now I don't know that it is anymore. I mean, look at Brock Purdy. He's kind of struggling.
Yeah, no, I agree. I think that's kind of the big thing. I think that's what's big about this offseason is kind of seeing where that should lie, like how our quarterback room is doing, because Kyle really does have a blind spot for quarterback, right? Darnold is a perfect example with what KOC could get out of him and what Kyle could get out of him. Yes, we can play him offensive line, but Kyle made Jimmy Garoppolo work, man. If you can make Jimmy Garoppolo work, you're going to have a tough time convincing me that even with offensive line, you couldn't make someone with 10 times Jimmy Garoppolo's talent work.
Well, here's the thing. Let's go back and revisit the Sam Darnold era with the 49ers.
Right.
Like, he didn't play well in that week 18 game against the Rams. Yep. But to be fair to Samuel, Mr. Darnold, he was playing with backups. So it's kind of hard to read into that game one way or another.
For sure.
The one thing you could really say is that the Niners correctly identified him as someone worthwhile, someone worth coaching, someone who could be successful. They saw it. They brought him in and gave him zero opportunity to compete for the starting job. They never really saw what the Vikings were able to uncover. And the one game where they had the opportunity was the Ravens game, because Purdy left that game with a concussion. He was awful. He threw 4 picks in that game, no touchdowns. Darnold comes in, actually throws 14 passes in that game against the Ravens. And maybe it was garbage time, but he was like decidedly better than Purdy in the same game on the same team against the same opponent.
Yeah.
It makes you wonder. Like, there was that stretch where Purdy may have gotten injured against Minnesota I think there was a quarterback sneak, and there was a question like, did he get dinged in that game? Because he stunk after that and threw a couple of picks. They could have benched him against Cincinnati just as a precautionary measure and started Darnold for one freaking game just to see what it looked like, just to see how it felt, if you know what I'm talking about. Anyway, they didn't do it. And it's like, man, you messed up.
And that's a weird thing, right? Is because in the training camp, Kyle was like, oh yeah, he reminds me of Steve Young. So I was like, wow, Kyle loves this guy. But then every opportunity you have to like show the love, it's kind of, no, never mind. I'm good. Like,
it's like he was here to push Trey Lance off the team. Okay, great. Mission accomplished. But it seems like he could have done, he's 14-2 right now.
Yeah.
And you could make a compelling argument that he should be the MVP in the entire NFL. No one thought the Vikings would be this good. Even though he has a good team. 14-2? He's a better record than Josh Allen.
You know what's funny, though, as I was looking at his stats yesterday, because I was just curious. Like, let's see how good he's doing this year. His stats, I mean, they're not as good as Purdy's were last year, but it kind of resembles like, got a good team around him. He's now a top 10 quarterback statistically. I mean, you could make the argument he's still Darnold. Yeah.
He's money in close games. He blows people out. Like, I never saw this coming. I've apologized before, but Samuel, I'm so sorry. I would talk so slick about this guy, and he would hold the door open for me going into the locker. Here you go, man. The nicest guy in the world. Sam, I was wrong, and I'm sorry. Wow.
Yeah, I don't get it. It really does show you how much good coaching can affect a player with talent. Like, can say whatever you want about like even the Zach Wilsons or whoever, right? Even Michael Penix hasn't been that good. But what if they have like a great coach by it? What if they have KOC? Is KOC the best quarterback coach in the league?
He's quite good. Or the guy in Tampa is doing a great job with Baker. I got another thing that it shows the 49ers. And I think they got to take this to heart and adjust now. Look what a great offensive line can do for a quarterback. Yeah. I mean, the Rams threw Jared Goff away, and then the Lions are like, oh, you'll give us 2 first-round picks and this quarterback? All we have to do is build an offensive line, and we're good. The Niners for years have been like, no, defensive line. No, man, the Lions lost their entire defensive line. They're doing great because their offensive line is killer. Maybe the Niners should learn from that, because you could argue that we're never going to really know who Brock Purdy is truly until he has a good offensive line, because the Brock supporters will say he's running for his life, and there's truth to that.
Yeah, for sure. And I think that is the one thing that's so weird is Kyle is such a run-heavy, motion, zone run scheme. Why is offensive line so low on the priority list for you? And that's where
let's talk about that, because this goes back a little bit before your time. Back in the 90s when Mike Shanahan made the outside zone like the thing in the NFL, a big reason he liked it is that he felt the kind of players who could execute it were the kind of offensive linemen that the rest of the league wasn't really looking for. Smaller, lighter. They're good at running, reaching and running and doing a particular style of blocking that most other teams are doing, power and counter and gap blocking and pinning and pulling. Where the other, like the Cowboys in the 90s were looking for offensive linemen who were 330 pounds. This guy was looking for guys who were like 280. And so all of a sudden he could get guys who fit his scheme in round 6. And that was a benefit for him. But now it's like, I don't know, man. Everyone's running the scheme, and other teams are getting premium talent to run it, and you can't pass block, and your run blocking isn't that good either. I asked him, I was like, what makes the Lions such a challenge to face? And he's like, oh, well, anytime you got a team with that good of an offensive line, they can really control the game. It's like, yeah,
exactly. And that's you notice it with the Texans too, right? With what you were just saying. Their outside zone running, you see that get crumbled in a second. You saw it whenever they played this week. CJ Stroud running for his life. Every time they went outside with Joe Mixon, he was met in the backfield by like 3-4 defensive linemen. It was just like, when are you going to realize, like, I mean, the Eagles, they have a good combo, right? Like Jason Kelce wasn't the biggest offensive lineman. He was a smaller guy. They have smaller guys on their line, but they somehow make an iron wall offensive line. It just seems like laziness. Like he's obsessed with grabbing receivers in the first round. Brandon Ayuk, Debo, Pearsall. Like, we have so many receivers from the first round. I don't think we've drafted one offensive lineman in the first round since Kyle's been here, right?
Yeah.
So why? Like, it seems like the one thing he would adore to grab is like a great tackle, or especially for an outside zone scheme, an amazing tackle.
Yeah, and it's like the thing with Purdy is like he's so attractive to Kyle because he can run the scheme and operate behind a subpar offensive line. Like, why should those be your top two considerations? A team like Detroit or Minnesota can put together this fortress in front of the quarterback with their offensive line, give him some weapons, and be like, we can just take a guy who was a top pick and was kind of like unfairly labeled a bust, put him on our team, and now we have like a really talented quarterback for cheap, doing really well. Whereas like Kyle's trying to make it work with the last pick in the draft.
Yeah,
it's like we don't have to do that. We don't have to do that at all. I feel like the Niners theoretically could be so close to being Detroit and Minnesota. Like you had the weapons, you had the coach, you just didn't have the offensive line.
Yeah,
and you had the quarterback too. You just let him go. Can you imagine if the Niners had just given Sam Darnold a shot, one start? Maybe they could have kept him. I mean, it's not like he's playing. It's not like he's expensive this year. What, he was like a 1-year deal for like $8 million?
Yeah, it wasn't bad. It was like, I think it was more expensive than we got him, but it wasn't anything crazy. And that's the thing and that's why I'm such a big proponent for Zach Wilson. Like, I think we were talking about it last time. That's the big difference between whenever everybody compares Kyle to Andy Reid, is like, that's the big difference is Andy Reid was able to identify quarterbacks like nonstop. Donovan McNabb, Michael Vick, Patrick Mahomes, even Alex Smith. Mm-hmm. Kyle would never grab quarterbacks like that. Like, he likes Jimmy Garoppolo, Brock Purdy. And then when he does
TJ Beathard, Nick Mullins.
And when he tries to find talent, it's like Trey Lance, which I also think Trey Lance didn't get a fair shake. I don't think Kyle's good enough at developing a quarterback.
But Trey Lance was like the biggest project of all time. And this was a veteran team that didn't have that kind of time.
And so I think that's like the biggest issue. And that's why they should make a move for a Zach Wilson I think Zach Wilson's been around great coaching at this point. He's been around Sean Payton. I think Sean Payton was a great person to sit behind. He got to sit behind Bo Nix, Jarrett Stidham, so a veteran and a rookie to get both. I think Kyle needs to be able to take a jump for a quarterback with talent and just kind of, because he's kind of let Purdy do that this year where it's like, okay, sure, yeah, like freestyle if you want, but not too much. Dude, if you let someone like Darnold last year or Zach Wilson have that kind of control, it would actually look good. It wouldn't be like a floaty 20-yard post.
And I love that you brought up Reed, because it's like if Reed were coaching this team and he had Sam Darnold and Brock Purdy, like which one would he have kept? All I know is the starting quarterbacks Reed has had have all been top 10 picks for 26 years. He came into the league and immediately drafted Donovan McNabb with the second pick. When he got old, he went and got Michael Vick, who was a number 1 pick. Then he went to Kansas City and got Alex Smith, who was a number 1 pick. He wasn't messing around with mid picks who fit his scheme. It's like, no. I can coach the best talents in the league. Bring them to me. If they thought football was hard before, I'll make it easy for them. I'll give them a screen game, all kind of easy stuff, and they'll have the best season of their career. He's done it over and over again, whereas Kyle really hasn't been able to do that. He had that one really good year with Matt Ryan and immediately went back to his comfort zone, which is guy picked around 99 to 130.
And that's another thing, right? Is Andy Reid was never afraid to be like, yeah, this guy's solid / good, but I want better. I want a great talent. Like before Vic, it was that Kevin, I forgot his name. Kevin
never worked.
Cobb. Yeah. And he was like 3-4 games in, even when he was getting like after he was healthy, he's like, nah, Vic is the guy. Like it's Vic.
This guy's mid.
And Alex Smith, same thing. Alex Smith was playing great. He was playing at an MVP level for the Chiefs.
I think he led the league in quarterback rating his final season as a starter there.
And he was like, nah, we want Mahomes. Yeah. Like, whereas Kyle would never do that. He didn't with Purdy and Darnold. He's like, no, Purdy's good enough. Jimmy's good enough.
Well, well, that's interesting to me. I feel like John Lynch is very much like Jimmy was good enough. Purdy is good enough. I'm not a big Kyle Shanahan guy, but one thing I do like about him is that he seems to be perpetually unsatisfied with his quarterbacks, as am I. But we're going to get into the quarterbacks a little bit more. I want to talk about what John Lynch said on the radio. This somehow like went under the radar for me. I didn't really see it. He said it on the radio, and I don't always listen to his radio interviews. Clearly, I should. This dude went on, what was it? I think it was KNBR a couple of days ago. He says, this is the quote. It's not somewhere where we want to be again, but we're here this year. Can't believe we're here, but we are. And we have to accept that. We have to learn from it. This is the key part. We can't just chalk it up to there were a lot of injuries. I'm going to read that one again. We can't just chalk it up to there were a lot of injuries. Well, the team we're playing, Detroit, they had a lot of injuries, but they found a way. And so we've got to look at the root. We have been looking at the root causes. We'll fix it. We've got a lot of great players and a lot of great people that we want to be a part of the solution moving forward, and we'll go find the other parts of our team to get us back to where we belong. And that's competing for championships, and I'm confident in our plan to do that. So again, can't just chalk it up to injuries. Detroit had injuries. They found a way. Got to find the root. What is that code for, Tyler?
I'm telling you, man, they have not gotten along since the Trey Lance draft. There's no way you're going to convince me that they have gotten along since Trey Lance draft. I think they both know that they're better together than they are separate, and so they've stayed together. But I don't think they've gotten along since the Trey Lance draft.
They stayed together for the kids. That's nice of them.
Yes, and I think they know that, Kyle knows he's not going to find a GM that lets him get as much control as John, and John knows it's really hard to find a great coach like Kyle. Because as much as I love giving Kyle, stuff, Kyle's a great coach. I wouldn't say he's elite. I would say he's great.
I don't know, Tyler. I'm going to stop you right there. I kind of disagree with your premise right here.
Really?
I feel like they've been – I agree that they probably aren't as buddy-buddy as they make it seem. They play catch every day at practice. I think they do that for the cameras. But to me, like, if their seats are warming up, and I've heard that they are, I believe that they are, warm, I think human nature, and I don't think these two are above it, is to point the finger. Say, it's not my fault.
They kind of did around Trey Lance, right? When Trey Lance didn't work out, they kind of were pointing fingers at each other, where it was just kind of like.
To me, this is one finger point. Like John Lynch did it earlier in the year. He said that the team is undisciplined and sloppy. That's a shot at the head coach. And then today he says, well, the other team, the Lions had injuries and they found a way. Well, that to me speaks to Dan Campbell's culture and the way he motivates. Of course, you could say it's a shot at himself. Like, well, their GM gave the team hella depth, but you could say it's also Dan Campbell's culture.
Yeah.
Yeah. So maybe he's saying, I don't know. Maybe our head coach lost the team, and at the first sign of adversity, this team fell apart. Because we're talking root causes here. And that sounds like, I don't know if he feels like Kyle lost the team, but root causes?
Yeah, root causes that was the highlight word to me, was we're identifying the root causes and we have a plan in place. Like, that to me were two big phrases that like, it was surprising me that no one blew. I was like, why is no one talking about this? And John Lynch literally already said, I know what's going wrong, and I am going to fix it this offseason. Like, I
am going to fix it. He also says we have a lot of great players and a lot of great people. He did not use the C word, which is coach.
He didn't say we have a lot of great coaches. You're right.
He said players and people, which could be. He went to Stanford. He's precise with his words. That could be. He could be talking about the front office. He could be talking about Tariq Ahmad. He could be talking about Jed York. He could be talking about Parag Marathe. I don't know. But it sounds like he's looking at this team being like, you know what? We lack something. Maybe Kyle doesn't have the emotional component. Maybe his scheme is passe. Who knows? I'm projecting onto John Lynch, but what he said in public was ominous.
Whew. I'm going to fix this. That's what he said. He didn't say we're going to fix it.
He didn't say Kyle's going to fix
John Lynch am going to fix this.
Yes.
Which, in my opinion, it's like, okay, this is crazy projection. I don't see this happening, but is there a world where he maybe does just go, you know what? I kind of like Ben Johnson. I like what he was able to do when his entire team around him was injured. Obviously, the offense.
And I could get him.
And Jed,
I could get him. Here's the thing. Everyone looks at John as like a weak general manager, man. Man, Kyle hired you. You don't even have final say. This is Kyle's team. Like, what if John finally feels like, no, like, this is my opportunity to get more power. I didn't want Ricky Pearsall. I didn't want Devondre Campbell. I never met Devondre Campbell. Kyle coached him in Atlanta. Kyle said, bring him on. I heard he's a good guy. I was like, okay, Jed, enough of letting this coach masquerade as a general. Let me do the job that I was.
Yeah.
I'm a Hall of Famer, man. Let me do the job. In fact, I got a hell of a Rolodex. People respect me. I could get Ben Johnson.
Or maybe that's just what he means, is what you just alluded to. Maybe he's just going to tell Jed, like, let me be GM. Stop letting Kyle be GM. Maybe it's what crafted.
Let me pick the players.
Where it's like, I'm done with you being GM. You're a bad GM. Maybe that's what John's going to say in the offseason is
like, Kyle, I'll build the offensive line.
Yeah,
I will.
Yeah, Kyle exactly.
He'll pick another wide receiver.
Yeah. Maybe that's what he's going to say. Maybe it's
Kyle pick a kicker. I didn't want to pick Jake Moody. Yeah, maybe that's what John Lynch could be doing. And I would.
That would be I think that was kind of my like straw that broke the camel's back with Kyle's the press conference where he was like, no, Jake's our guy. Like, of course you don't want someone to publicly chastise a player, but Jake Moody deserves it. But like, and dude, Kyle's ego is going to run this team into the dirt at this point.
If it hasn't already.
Yeah. Because he just refuses to give up on bad picks. Like Jake Moody was obviously a bad pick. I don't know who doesn't agree with that now. Letting Robbie Gould go for this dude was awful. It was a bad pick. Like he also making bad picks or good picks and then playing vets over young guys relentlessly. Like you played Devondre Campbell over D Winters all year. Why? You did that, Kyle. The second CMC comes back, he's obviously not 100%. Jordan Mason's getting 2-3 carries a game. Why? He was,
and like these last two games, rusher. I bet they're gonna play young guys because you have to at this point. But like, why did it take this long? And I'm just assuming they'll play Jacob Cowing the last couple of. They may not.
Yeah.
But that kind of stuff. He was one of the more promising rookies in preseason and never got a shot because Kyle said he wasn't ready. But Chris Conley's ready. Okay.
Also, why isn't Pearsall starting to get like when this is what I'm looking for with Kyle's. Like his stubbornness is insane. Why? And that's one thing Andy's great at is like, if something's not working, like Kadarius Toney, he's not going to just be like, no, Kadarius Toney's our number one. That's what Kyle would do. He'd be like, no, I trust Kadarius Toney. He had a punt return in the Super Bowl. That's our guy. Whereas like, it's obvious with Debo, at least he wasn't on it this year. Why not give Pearsall some of his routes? Why not try Pearsall on some of those routes? Why not try Cowing? At some point, please God, and he hasn't done it. Maybe he'll do it the last couple games, but why is it taking when our season is over to finally acknowledge, all right, yeah, now we can realize Debo was not that great this year. Like, I don't want to wait this long. And I think that's also some of the root cause. Like maybe get an OC. Let's hire maybe an OC that is at least there for Kyle to bounce ideas off of. Like, because I don't think McDaniel was as big of a proponent in Kyle's offense as people want to say, but I think he was a great sounding board for Kyle so that he could have someone to talk to about offensive ideas.
To me, Kyle uses injuries as like a lifesaver, like a life vest. It is, he clings to that excuse. It's like, hey man, yeah, I'm 6 and 9, 10, 11, whatever. But like we had a lot of injuries this year. And John Lynch publicly is saying, you don't get that excuse.
Don't care. Yeah.
You don't get that excuse. And there is a root cause. And to me, that is code for the culture is messed up here. And I think we all can see it. Yeah. You got a player quitting on you. Did Kyle go over and handle it? No, John Lynch did. Yeah. So the culture's messed up. Everyone knows it. Everyone can see it. One person's responsible for it. John Lynch has identified it. But if Kyle Shanahan can't fix the culture, and I'm guessing he'll get another year to do it,
yeah,
they've identified the issue, and they've identified the guy who has to fix it. And if he can't, here's the thing. Let's talk about it. So let's assume that these two guys' seats are warming up. They were brought in as a package deal. Let's go back to the Harbaugh-Balky days. That was 10 years ago. The Niners tried to pick sides.
And they kept the wrong guy. Yeah.
They tried to pick sides. To me, what you do is you either keep both or you get rid of both and you start over.
Yeah, I agree. And I do. And again, this isn't it's hard to know with Kyle and John Lynch, like who's doing what, like, cause they always point fingers when things are going bad. Like I guarantee, he made that pick. Well, he made that pick. Right. It's like, you don't really know. At the end of the day, I actually like John Lynch. I think he's a great players dude. I think the players love John. But yeah, I agree. I don't think you can keep both. I don't think you can just keep one. And if you were going to, I obviously would keep John because I think coaching in my opinion, has a lot more effect on the players than a GM. And when you have, I think the Brandon Ayuk situation really showed the dysfunction between Kyle and John. I think that situation alone kind of told the story of this year. Was that
Yeah,
situation.
I mean, we've talked about all the mistakes, like all the things that they could get chastised for by their bosses. But I mean, the first round pick, so many things, like Devondre Campbell, the whole thing. But the extensions were so like out of character for the 49ers. Like Parag Marathe isn't the kind of guy that I would imagine would greenlight those things. That's Kyle Shanahan and John Lynch saying, Jed, please. And the York saying, okay, we'll do what you want. But when all three of them blow up in their faces, I could imagine Parag getting a little bit more power and the Yorks losing a little bit of trust in John and Kyle with their financial decisions, saying, you know what, if you guys come to us and beg us to fork over millions and millions of dollars that Parag doesn't think we should spend, we're going to go with Parag's recommendation from now on. Sorry, you had your opportunity and you guys have failed.
And my thing is like, also, in my opinion, Jed's not off the hook either, right? Have we had an elite quarterback since Jed's taken over? No.
Like, they had years where the guy looked good for a year or two.
Yeah. And that's my thing is like, Jed's not off the hook either, because at some point, if you're Jed York, you have to step and say, we need to get a quarterback. Yeah. That is the one thing that is missed through all of our failed Super Bowls, all of the failure over the last 24 years, 25 years is we don't have one. The only time we were like a dominant offense was when Colin Kaepernick looked like an MVP. When Brock
and all three of those Super Bowl losses under the Yorks, their quarterback crumbled with the ball in their hands and an opportunity to win the game in the fourth quarter. All three of them.
Yeah. And it's at the
point.
And
to me, that's when you learn. You've learned what you need to know about that quarterback. He's not a champion. You move on. Kaepernick wasn't it. Jimmy wasn't it. Brock going the same direction.
Well, Brock just had that press conference a couple days ago where someone asked him, "Hey, is your arm fully 100%?"
I asked him.
Yeah. It was you. And he was like, yeah, 100%. I was like, so your arm's just naturally weaker this year. That's even more worrying to me than anything else.
Let's come back to these two, Kyle and John, for a second. If their seats are warming up, I could see. I mean, we've kind of just already painted the picture of what John Lynch's case would be for himself. Don't fire me. Fire that guy, because he's the problem. He's the problem with the culture. His offense isn't working anymore. I could bring in a better head coach. I'm connected in this league. I'm a freaking Hall of Famer. I'm John Lynch. Let's look at it from Kyle's perspective. Kyle's perspective could be, all right, like we lose Adam Peters, who's clearly been doing John Lynch's job from the backseat for years. He goes over to Washington. That team's clicking. That organization is functional for the first time in God knows how long. And look at us. You're going to blame me for these players that I picked? Like, I have to pick the players because you can't do the job. So instead of blaming me and asking for more power for you, how about we bring in a real general manager, someone to replace Adam Peters, someone who really fills in the gaps that he was doing for years. That's what I want. I could see that. We need you're going to knock me for the picks I'm making? Great, man. Then bring in a real general manager.
Here's my thing with Adam Peters, though. Outside of Jaden Daniels, are any of his rookies actually like crazy? Even his signings, Eckler, Bobby Wagner, I mean, they're not doing much over there.
But like look at it bigger from a bigger. It's not just the draft. It's just like overall organizational
for sure.
Functioning. Like the Niners are dysfunctional.
Yeah.
And maybe Kyle says, well, we don't have a general manager. It was Adam Peters. He's gone. Yeah. And now you asking John to actually scout and watch film and sign free agents? Like he can't. So he asked me, and I have to ask like, my former, the coaches I know around the league. I mean, freaking, it seemed like Brandon Staley recommended Leonard Floyd, and I don't know who recommended Devondre Campbell, but Kyle coached him in Atlanta. There could be that side of the coin too. Also, Kyle could be like, man, this guy traded for Jimmy Garoppolo. This guy wanted to keep Jimmy Garoppolo, wanted to extend Jimmy Garoppolo. He thinks Brock's the next great quarterback. He's not. I've been propping him up. Like, if you get rid of me and you stick with John, you're going to have Brock Purdy and a bad coach and a bad offense, and you're going to feel stupid when I'm going on somewhere else, coaching a good quarterback, and I'm back in the Super Bowl. That's what he would say.
You know who I think should get fired? Whoever turned down in the draft a first rounder for BA or Debo or both. Because I heard they got a first round offers for both receivers. Whoever signed off on turning those trades down should be fired, because that's who made the biggest mistake that could have got rid of all the BA drama. Boom, first round gone, drafted one of the Brian Thomas Jr. is amazing. You have so many receivers that you could have gotten late in the draft. That's amazing. Lad McConkey's amazing.
And what's crazy too is like even not doing that trade, if they with all the mistakes they made this offseason, if they had just drafted Lad McConkey, no offense to Ricky Pearsall, but
yeah,
McConkey looks legit, and he was legit in college. Like a lot of people gave him a first round grade. If they had just taken him, they'd be in business, but they didn't. He's one of the best receivers in the league at beating man coverage right now, and that's the Niners' biggest weakness. Eesh.
And Kyle just doesn't like getting rid of his friends. It's obnoxious. Juice check, Debo, BA. We had to wait for BA all year. I mean, Debo's obviously past his prime. If we traded him at the draft for whoever was offering for him, like it's just I don't get.
See, that's to me minimum. I love that what you're saying. Minimum. Whoever. If anyone had to talk with it, and you'd think they'd have to. Someone from New York's Parag. We're not firing you, but this whole like era of extending all these players, these old players that you're friends with, that you go to like, no, absolutely not. We're getting rid of these old players. Your friends, use check, and we're playing young guys. And if you don't have if you have a problem with that, let us know, because that's a deal breaker right there. We are playing young guys, especially these last two games. We're playing Jacob Cowing. We drafted him. We need to know what Jacob Cowing is before we get to the draft next, because if they might feel like they need wide receivers next year. Oh, well, Ricky Pearsall and Jacob Cowing didn't do anything. You need to know what you have in those two right freaking now. You need to know what you have in Israel Abanikanda. You need to know.
Why hasn't he played? He was actually so good in college. I don't understand why Patrick Taylor's the only one getting like Israel Abanikanda is actually not a bad back. Like
they need to know what they have in Braden Willis. Like stop playing. Eric Sobert caught a freaking touchdown pass. You got to play all the young guys to know what you have, because the depth of this team sucks unless they have a bunch of young players who are actually good that Kyle Shanahan didn't know. So that's what you got to do the next 2 weeks.
Yeah. And I mean, if I was the Yorks, I'd start it with, first off, we need you to let go of Debo. Like Debo's got to go.
And
that's our first. And use check is just, dude, when he fumbled, oh my God, that was so ironic when he fumbled to get. That was literally the story of the season, is everyone Kyle has touched ruins the 49ers. Like not touched. Every one of Kyle's friends that he will go to bat for is just, dude, like you gotta separate friendship from, like Andy Reid did. I'm sure Andy Reid loved Tyreek Hill, but he was probably just like, we can't pay that much for him. Like, like Tyreek Hill blames it on the GM.
He hadn't built up a personal relationship to the point where it would be awkward to trade him. It's like, hey man, I really like you. You're a good player, but now you're going to play for the Dolphins and you'll love it.
Yeah.
It'll be fun.
It's just like they have to be warming. There's no way you spend more money than the Niners have ever spent in franchise history, and then you miss the playoff. We were talking about this prior to the season. What happens if they miss the playoffs? Like that would be insane. And then they did. Like there's no way Parag, Jed, everyone else up there is not pissed, because they were pissed that we spent the money.
Do you understand how much money this front office spent this offseason in signing bonuses to keep this team together, because Kyle and John said they were going to win a Super Bowl, and now they have 6 wins? Like, yeah, I'd be pissed.
And they're about to have to spend on Brock Purdy. And
they're going to have to spend to get rid of players. They're going to have to spend on Debo for him to go away. They're going to have to pay for him to play for another team next year.
Yeah. We had to restructure Hargrave. He's going to play somewhere else under our paycheck. Like, it's just, dude, it's one of those things where at some point, like, I get it. Kyle, his highs, but if the lows are this low, like, don't you want consistency? Like, doesn't Jed York want some sort of, like, the Steelers get first rounded every year, sure, but at least they're always competitive. Like,
and to me, one reason the highs were high is because the NFC was awful.
Yeah.
And they're now, like, the days of being able to like win the NFC Championship with some system quarterback who hands off a lot and throws 4-yard passes is freaking over. There's some really good quarterbacks in the NFC now.
Especially if like a Ben Johnson gets hooked up with a Caleb Williams, like the NFC just gets even stronger.
I mean, the Niners are going to have to go through Sam Darnold every year. Here's the thing about it, all right? We're still laughing about this, but like if Sam Darnold wins a Super Bowl, if Sam Darnold has a
No
long
way.
run of success with the Vikings, the Niners, it's going to be like pushed in their face weekly. You had this guy. He was on your team. You didn't even know it. You let him go. Like, that's a rough one. That's
Telling you, man, Zach, make up for the 2021 draft. Get Zach Wilson on the team. That's who you wanted in the first place anyways. Bring Zach Wilson in and actually let him. I don't care if you sign Brock to a Baker deal, a 3-year, $100 million deal. Let him compete with Zach Wilson. Just let it naturally happen. If Brock's better, Brock's better. If Zach's better, Zach looked good in preseason. He should not have been the Broncos QB3. Let them compete. I don't want to hear, well, Brock's he's the leader. I don't care. Jimmy was a leader. Jimmy's a great talker. He's a great leader. He's a great friend. I don't care if Brock's buying trucks. Let them compete. Who's better on the football field? Who is better on the football field?
I bought him trucks. Sean says trade Bosa for 2 1s, draft Abdul Carter and best O-line available in the first round. Bring Myles Garrett in, draft best center available in round 2, best D tackle in the 3rd, and BPA the rest of the way. I like that, Sean. But what I was saying before is I need to know what Evan Anderson is before we're talking about defensive tackle in the 3rd. Start Evan Anderson and play him most of the game because he's looked so good this season. Let's see what he looks like as a starter. He might be one. Shady Luke says people laugh when it's reported Ben Johnson is interested in Chicago. They tend to forget he most likely loves the potential he sees in Caleb. Yeah, but to me, I wouldn't want to coach in that division.
I wouldn't either. I also wouldn't want to coach for the Bears, especially if someone like John Lynch calls and says like, hey, would you want to coach the Niners? Like, I'm coaching.
Yeah, just wait around. You might get that Niners job. Official BNA Music 88 says Kyle believes more in Moody than he did in TDP, Hasty, Mason, and Garendo. I'm not singing it today. Josh Wyatt says John Lynch is a Hall of Fame champion. He built the roster. People say Kyle is the asset, but if Lynch became available, 10 owners would cut off their hand to have Lynch be their right hand instead. I don't know about that, man. Really? Is he a negotiation winner? Nope. He's the guy who just draws it out and then gives the money over at the very end. I don't know about John. He's got a lot to answer for too.
30, I mean, to be honest, you could say the same about Kyle. 25 out of 32 head coaching positions would be open for Kyle if he wanted to, if he left the Niners too.
True. Moonman says this season has been worse than 2020 by far. No lie.
Yes.
Agree. That was the Nick Mullins here. Jewish guy says, I wanted to trade Debo for Likely or Mitchell from Baltimore. Yeah, we floated that last year. Isaiah Likely is a better player than Debo right now. Sean says McConkey wouldn't have played. True. Willie Sneed said Kyle plays his guys. Kyle is soft and isn't an alpha. He's not a motivator of men and always says players should self-motivate because he can't do it. That's correct. He always says, like, so what are you going to do to tell to motivate these players? And he's like, we're pros. You know, they got a game check. It's game ops.
He said the same about developing. Remember, Trey Lance asked, what are you doing to develop Trey Lance? I think quarterback should come in ready to play. It's like, then why'd you draft Trey Lance, dude? What were you doing? Jared Owen says it's a pipe dream, but I want Ward on the Niners. We're going to talk about that next. I'm glad you brought that up. But before we do, it is time for some sleeper picks. Okay. Tonight, Niners Lions. Jahmyr Gibbs. Let's start with Jahmyr Gibbs. We can go rushing yards, receiving yards, anytime touchdown, receiving touchdown, receptions. I mean, there's so many ways he could burn the Niners. Choose one. I mean, I would give him an anytime touchdown. You know what I'm saying? Like, he's going to score. It's just when.
Yeah, I have to say that too. His fumble in the NFC Championship game was huge. Amon-Ra St. Brown.
He's in my fantasy
interesting matchup, dude. I mean, he has to go up against Lenore, who has been playing like a beast all year. The Niners did a pretty good job against St. Brown in the NFC Championship game. 73.5 receiving yards. What do you think?
Ooh, 73.5 is a good number right there.
I kind of feel like the Niners can. Oh, I don't know. I want to say less.
This is the issue. If they play zone and he gets back past the corners, our safeties are dusted. He's getting 70 yards right there. But
they better not play zone.
They have shown a propensity to not throw to Amon-Ra this year. I will say that about the Lions. They have shown comfortability just using Jameson Williams, Laporta. He's
been under 3 of the last 4 weeks.
Yep.
I'm going less. I'm going if that's cool with
there you
you.
go. Yeah,
Because
you
I'm a big Niner fan and I believe in them. Brock Purdy,
Less.
Big Brock.
Actually, no.
Passing yards, rushing.
Lions
What?
defense isn't good this year. I would probably take them more on those passing yards.
Yeah, but they're going to play a lot of man coverage.
Oh,
They're going to play a lot of man coverage and bring pressure.
but garbage time, man. Garbage time's powerful.
That's a great point. I hadn't thought about that.
Yeah.
Let's go over on that one. George Kittle. He's not only playing on national television, but he's entering the last year of his contract next year, and he might. Hey, sure, he wants an extension. Is he going to show out?
I have a soft spot for George.
He's such a good player.
God, and he's such a Niner. I love him.
He's such a Niner.
He's such a Niner.
Okay, Jared Goff, 254.5.
See, here's the scary part about this is, I mean, what are they going to be up by at halftime? He might just be able to coast the rest of the way.
Yeah, they might just be able to run the ball and win.
Yeah, see, that's my issue.
Let's go less.
Yeah.
Let's go. Or unless we want to do touchdowns, 2.5. No, that's been blocked. Sometimes they block combinations, and I don't understand the mathematical reason, but there is one. Jameson Williams, 53.5. Ooh.
He's super hot or cold. So you could really not be
wrong.
That's
true. He's kind of every other week, huh?
Yeah, that's actually how he's been every other week. Right now, technically, we're on the down week.
What about touchdowns?
It's half.
I think he had a rushing touchdown against the Niners in the NFC Championship game on a reverse.
Let's do it. Anytime.
Let's do it.
Yeah.
Let's log it in. That's 6. Is there one more? Oh, how could we miss Debo? 47.5 receiving yards in a game that doesn't count. That's when he plays his best.
Look at every other week besides last week.
They're going to be playing a lot of man coverage.
This Lions defense is so bad. That's the hardest part.
They have good DBs though.
Bad. But didn't Carlton Davis just go out? Isn't he hurt too now? They just lost the DB, I thought.
All right, so you think he's gonna tear it up?
I think he might get.
Who's that trade
50.
value?
I think he might get 50.
Oh, I love it. All right, let's lock it in. Flex, submit. Why? All right, man. I'm taking it. Hold on. I want to make this count because sometimes. Okay, I'm gonna take out the Amon-Ra St. Brown one, just because I want to show people how it works. What?
Jared Goff passing yards, George Kittle. What?
I don't think that makes sense.
No,
I'm gonna take out Jared Goff too.
Okay.
Oh, well, okay. Well, that's
maybe because we have Brock Purdy passing yards too. Maybe you can't do quarterbacks and receivers.
Dude, it's just upset right now.
Yeah, it is. It's mad at us.
I'll figure out later. But what I do want to say is download the Sleeper app, use promo code Cohn and get entered to win this signed George Kittle jersey before he goes off for 300 receiving yards or 4 tonight. Okay. All right. So the top pick in the draft, it's now belongs to the Patriots, who don't need a quarterback. They got Drake May. He's a good player. Should the 49ers trade up for the number 1 pick in the draft?
Dude, I'm telling you, man. I doubt it will happen, but I will have dreams of us trading up for someone. Like, you can go Cam Ward. I personally think Shadur Sanders is, I think, who would fit the team best. I think he plays in a quick hitter offense that Kyle likes. I think he's smart. I don't think he likes running around too much, but he can. He's also confident enough with attitude that I don't think he'd get bullied by Kyle, which I think is good. I like it. I think Shadur Sanders would be great. Or trade up for a Travis Hunter. Get rid of Debo.
No, it's got to be a quarterback. I'm actually not against it because I feel like Cam Ward and Shadur Sanders are like, they could be good right away. They've played a lot of college football. They have the reps that Trey Lance and Zach Wilson and Mac Jones didn't have. Justin, all those guys coming out off the pandemic didn't have enough reps. These days, quarterbacks play a lot in college. I'd be interested.
My thing with Cam Ward is he kind of reminds me of like a Trey Lance where he's super quiet. I think Kyle needs a Shadur or a Spencer Rattler or a Zach Wilson, someone with confidence already instilled in them that Kyle can't break down. Where it's like he can say, yell, whatever he wants, and it's like, no, I know what I'm going to do, bro. Like, I'm good.
Right. And I think that's how, like, Mike Shanahan had success, but he was a similar style coach, and he won with Steve Young and John Elway. Like, you couldn't break them down. They were two of the best players of all time. So they almost like wanted that type of criticism because they're so good. But yeah, I mean, those guys are one of one. Here's
What
the
do you
thing.
think
I
it'll
don't like the
take?
idea of trading 3 first-round picks in the future for a guy in the draft.
Do you think
but
you'd have to?
yes,
I don't.
for the
I
top
don't.
pick.
You think so? If we offered them like a Bosa or a Debo,
Well, see, that's what I'm thinking. I feel like there's other assets you could trade other than future first-round picks, which the Niners need to make this happen.
And again, I think Bosa is incredible. I am not on the get rid of Bosa for nothing train, but I think if you can get rid of him for a Shedeur Sanders, like an elite quarterback, I think do it. I think put all the marbles in Kyle. You're an offensive guy. Nick Sorensen isn't the greatest defensive coordinator, anyways.
Yeah, like Dan Campbell lost Aiden Hutchinson and kept chugging along. Like, you don't need Nick Bosa. You're good.
Let's put the ball in your court. Let's
Yeah.
make sure you don't have any excuses. We are giving everything to offense. Let's trade up for Shedeur. Let's draft the rest of offensive line, sign some offensive line. You have everything you could want. Quarterback, weapons, running backs.
And then fire Nick Sorensen. Get rid of this vanilla. No, I'm sorry. Get rid of this vanilla defensive scheme, which is all about rushing for, playing zone, taking away explosive. Like, nah. Win with your offense and then get a defense like Minnesota, Kansas City that brings pressure, plays man-to-man coverage, and may give up an explosive here and there, but is also taking the ball away and is much more aggressive. Do that.
Yeah. I miss Saleh for that reason, man. He was so aggressive and we were so
By the end,
good.
he was. By the end, he was. Because you know what? In 2020, you know what he didn't have that year? Nick Bosa. And you know what his defense ranked? 5th in yards allowed. Yep.
So, in my opinion, man, I think Nick is phenomenal. And yes, you're making another team better. But at this point, we've tried and true let's have a great running back. Kyle can work with whatever. He can't, obviously. 4 out of 8 seasons he's been here have been losing. The other 4, yes, they've been great. But let's trade up, do it again, run it back. But this time get an established quarterback with established confidence, with established play time, with an established play style that isn't a developmental project, that knows what they bring
and
to a
keep
team.
Brock. Be like, no, Brock, we'll keep you, man. You can compete with Shedeur Sanders. And if you're better than him, then you'll start. And if you tear it up, we'll give you an extension. But we are not going to skimp at the most important position. And we're not going to be afraid because we missed on Trey Lance. That was a ridiculous pick. He had 300-something throws in college. Shedeur Sanders has probably more than that this season, plus last season, plus his time at Jackson State?
Jackson State, yep.
Yeah. So he has the reps. He has like a completion percentage is over 70. He's accurate. He's mobile. He's one of the two. I happen to prefer Cam Ward. I haven't watched a ton of either one, but it's like one of the two, man. Why not?
The only negative about Shedeur is he takes a lot of sacks, but you could chalk that up to his offensive line being absolute garbage and him having a non-existent run game, which the Niners can give him a run game. The Niners can give him an offensive line.
Yeah.
So
there's no rule against it.
Yep. Yeah. I mean, and even if you go, I don't care who it is. Just make a move. I don't want to go into another season with Brock Purdy and Brandon Allen. That's ridiculous. I think that the first pick's up for grabs. We're at what, 11th, and we're gonna get
and it could be higher, right? They're gonna lose tonight most likely, and then they could always lose to the Cardinals if they try hard enough.
It's not a ridiculous jump.
No.
So
the Rams traded up for Goff. It didn't ruin their franchise. They went to a Super Bowl with him. The Eagles traded up for Carson Wentz. Didn't ruin their franchise. They went to a Super Bowl with him on the team. I mean, if the quarterback is legit, then do it.
Yeah. Why not?
Yeah.
What do we have to lose?
The alternative is hope and pray that Zach Wilson bails you out, which he may or not. I like this better.
Oh, and the hope is that they actually take a chance on Zach Wilson. My guess is they'll take a chance on Jimmy and just bring Jimmy back.
What about the dude from Georgia, Carson Beck?
He just tore his UCL. I'm pretty sure.
Really?
He's not playing in the entire CFB because he hurt his UCL.
That sucks.
So I would not. I mean, he'd be a UDFA, so I guess, but that would be another Kyle. That would be such a typical Kyle pick. Is he falls in the 7th round? He
messed up his elbow, but we had success with guys with messed up elbows. I'm not really against them doing that, trading up for a quarterback. I think you got to take the position seriously and don't say like, well, no, our guy's good enough. You don't know that he's good enough, and good enough isn't good enough, frankly. Unless you have an elite guy, you're looking for an elite guy. And we can all agree that Brock has had excellent stretches, but I think we all can agree that he's not elite.
He's
Sorry.
not elite. You could see
No.
it against great teams. And that's where you really see whether quarterbacks are elite or not. What do they do against elite teams? Brock had really bad stretches in the playoffs. He had amazing fourth quarters in those playoffs that got him where he was. But if he played like he did for 3, we'd have been beaten by the Packers. We lost to the Packers if he didn't have a miraculous fourth quarter and Jordan Love didn't crumble at the end. So, dude, every quarter you can't win in this league with a good quarterback anymore. This isn't the Trent Dilfer era. You can't do it. You have to have great or elite to win in the NFL these days at the quarterback position.
I'm trying to get Brock's split stats against the AFC in his career. Now I can
dude, it's so
it'd be
bad.
nice to get it with the Super Bowl as well, but AFC. Hold on, where you at?
It's just
For his whole career. Just a second. Here we go. Whole career, and this is just regular season. So NFC, he's 20-6 with a quarterback rating of 116.9, just destroying the little brother conference. When he plays the AFC, which the last couple of years has been the more dominant conference, 6-7, completion percentage of 61 against the NFC at 70, 14 touchdown passes, 15 picks. Again, and against the NFC, 47 touchdown passes and 10 picks, almost 5-1 ratio. 14 and 15 against the AFC with a quarterback rating of 82.5. That's not. How do you win a Super Bowl with a guy who can't beat Kansas City, Baltimore, Buffalo, Cleveland, Cincinnati? Like, that's a problem.
And that's my biggest. Why wouldn't you? What do you have to lose trading up for a top pick? What? You're not going to win another
Nick
Super Bowl?
Bosa. I mean, Nick Bosa's good, but it's like he's not worth the money you're giving him. And you just saw the Lions have a comp. You don't even need a great defense anymore, man. Go all in with your offense, Kyle. You're a genius.
Yeah, and that's my biggest thing is Nick Bosa. I personally think he's elite. I think he's one of the best edge rushers in the league. But at the end of the day, when you have a hole as big as the 49ers do and have had for years at quarterback, Nick Bosa at that point doesn't move the needle for you. He can't. What if he gets the ball back? What's Brock going to do? Throw a pick? Like,
yeah. So you trade the Niners first round pick and Nick Bosa for the number 1 pick in the draft. Here's another thing the Niners could trade. Kyle.
To the Patriots? What
if
they don't want
him? Hey, man, you want to be the next Bill Belichick? There you go. You could go from Bill Walsh's team to Bill Belichick's team. Kyle and the Niners number 1 for the first pick in the draft.
I would do it. I would do that as long as we get Ben Johnson.
Hey, well, if you get the number 1 pick in the draft, you might have an offensive coach like Ben Johnson. Here's what the Niners have going for them. They play in the weakest division in the NFC, or one of them. So you could go coach Caleb Williams, who's kind of strange and a bit of a diva and may not be coachable and be last place in the NFC North every year. Or you could come over here, coach Cam Ward, Shadur Sanders, and win the NFC West right away and every year.
That's my big. I've also been seeing this kind of like Niners should trade for Joe Burrow steam picking up, but what? Like in my opinion, how
trade Kyle and Bosa for Joe Burrow? But I don't think Kyle would want to go to Cincinnati without Burrow. That's the thing. Unless he would prefer. Maybe he thinks Jake Browning's better than Burrow. He might. He might.
Dude, that's my thing is Burrow's like his perfect quarterback, but he'd never be able to find it. And he would never take the risk for him.
And Burrow would hate him.
Yeah, for sure. Because he wouldn't let him just be him.
No. Ruiz SB Champ says, sincerely, division champs Rams pay Purdy $60 million. Dude. Thank you for that. V says, teams like the Niners should lose the title of storied franchise if they haven't won a championship in like 20 years.
I disagree.
But that's why you're storied, because they used to be great. That's the story.
Yeah. Right. Also, I mean, a lot of teams would pay their left kidney for the Niners' success they've had over the past 5 years. So, like, I can't go that far, but because
it's true.
Anyone would give up anything to be us.
Some teams. So right now, the Niners have gotten bitten by the injury bug, and it's something that happens to them a lot. And they often talk about like, man, how unlucky. How unfortunate. But for a team that it happens this often to, it's almost like maybe
not unfortunate.
maybe it's not unfortunate. Maybe it's something you're doing wrong. Because you look at other teams that have played a lot of games the last few seasons, like, I don't know, Kansas City. They have injuries, but it doesn't completely ruin their season. What do the Niners do about this supposed injury bug?
See, that's my thing, right? Is what is going on with San Francisco to where they are constantly injured, like all the time. Like the BA thing, I'll push to the side. BA was a freak accident. That literally would never have been avoided with even the Chiefs team, like training team or whatever. But like we're talking about like Trent Williams or Nick Bosa or Christian McCaffrey or every other one of our 50 players. Dre Greenlaw's back now, but he's already hurt again. Like, it's just one of those things where it's like, what is going on? This happened in 2020, where our entire team got hurt again. I've actually never
I have a theory.
What?
I have a theory. Okay, here's what the Niners do. They add players who have extensive injury histories, either in college or in the NFL. And then they play them as if they don't have extensive injury histories. And then when they get hurt again, the Niners are like, what? What? I mean, Deebo Samuel has never had a full season without getting hurt, going back to college. So when he gets hurt, it's like Trent Williams has been getting hurt every year since 2013. Christian McCaffrey has an extensive injury history. And the Niners are like, well, he's been healthy for a year. I think that's behind him. What? Isaac Guerrero. Why didn't he start in college? Because he injured his hamstring all the freaking time. What did he do to this year? As soon as he got a start, injured his hamstring. Like, injured players tend to get injured, man. But maybe the Niners need to like take that into consideration.
Here's another weird thing, though. Even players that don't. Pearsall didn't have an injury history.
That's
now
true.
He's been injured all year. Purdy didn't have
an
injury
hold
history.
on. I think he did sublux his shoulder in college.
Oh,
they thought it was behind him.
I did hear about that. But here's another Purdy. Purdy played 4 years.
True.
And he didn't miss. I don't even think he missed a game in college. And now since he's been in San Francisco, he had a torn UCL and then his shoulder injury this year to his throwing arm.
Yep.
Have you ever seen an organization have as many hurt quarterbacks in the last 8 years as Kyle? I haven't.
No. Here's the thing, though. I feel like let's go back to what John Lynch said. You can't use this as an excuse because we've seen teams overcome this issue, particularly Detroit this year. And if you have a strong culture where the team believes in their coach and they're not all out for individual goals, it can work. It can happen. 2019, the Niners were that team. They were fresh. They believed in Kyle. They went on a crazy run. They were good that year, but they had injuries. Like their starting running back was Jerick McKinnon. He missed the whole year. Yeah. I mean, I'm sure there were other guys too, but yeah, it's okay that they found a way to make it work, and this team doesn't.
But no, what I'm saying is I'm not even wanting to use it as an excuse. I'm using it as a pain point for Kyle, because how do you have so many injured? Like, let's just even talk quarterbacks. Why are your quarterbacks always hurt? I've never seen this ever.
And your running backs. NFL. What about your running backs?
What are we down to? RB5? Because Elijah Mitchell's hurt, Christian McCaffrey's hurt, Jordan Mason's hurt, and Guerendo's hurt. So yeah, we're at RB5.
Yeah.
How?
Yeah. And the thing is that the same thing went on with Mike Shanahan. I mean, he went through Terrell Davis in like 3-4 years, and then he had another 1,000-yard rusher who would get hurt, and then another 1,000-yard rusher who would get hurt. I mean, this has just been what they've done.
Like, do they run them into the ground? I don't get it. Listen, even quarterbacks.
Do they value pass protection? Hurt. No. Do they get the ball out of their hands, of the quarterback's hands quickly? Not often enough.
And isn't that crazy? Like,
do they rotate their running backs? No.
Beathard, Mullins, Garoppolo, Trey, Purdy, Jimmy. Or I already said Jimmy. And then, I mean, Josh Johnson got hurt. Like, I think
every quarterback the Niners have had under Kyle has gotten hurt.
Brandon Allen even had a broken finger. Even he was hurt, man.
That's right. Trey Lance broke his finger. Trey Lance got hurt like 5 times in 4 starts somehow. He got hurt in preseason.
How does someone that young get hurt so much?
Yeah.
Like I just there's
2 quarterbacks tore their UCL, not 1, 2.
Yeah.
Mullins did it too.
Kyle's doing something wrong. Like, that's what I'm saying is, like, John's like, we've identified the root causes.
Yeah, his name is Kyle Shanahan.
Yeah.
But it's also John Lynch too. I don't like the idea of the Niners being like, you know what, we're gonna fire Kyle. We're gonna rally around John, and John is gonna lead us to the promised land. You sure about that? Based on what?
I mean, yeah, I agree. Because our offensive line stinks. We have
Now,
one
if he can get Ben
guy.
Johnson, I'm listening.
If he gets Ben Johnson, then I'll shut up. Go ahead.
Yeah.
You trade up for first overall and say, Kyle, I'm not
Sure.
listening to you. John, you're the man. We'll keep you along.
But he won't, dude. The guy who would do that is Kyle. The guy who would give Brock Purdy $250 million is John. That's the way I look at it.
You don't think it's Kyle? You think Kyle doesn't want to pay Brock?
Kyle wanted Lance. Kyle flipped out after 2020 and wanted a new quarterback. I don't think, like you said, this all went back to the Lance trade. I don't think Lynch felt they needed to make any trade. I think he felt, man, it's one bad year. Let's improve the offensive line. Let's protect Jimmy Garoppolo. That's what I think.
Yeah, I don't know. I feel like there's so much. I wish they would. It's so hard because obviously everyone hides something in the media, but the Niners specifically, I wish so. Wait, can't we get on Hard Knocks this year? Aren't we technically eligible because we missed the playoffs?
Please.
I would love to see the John Lynch and Kyle Shanahan in-depth relationship, like behind closed doors.
That should be their punishment for this year. Look, we're not going to fire you, but you guys have to be on freaking Hard Knocks.
Okay? The off season, the draft version.
Yeah, we're going to show the whole world what you guys are doing, and we're going to open up, peel back the curtain, and we're going to let people make the decision whether you guys should stay or go. Hard Knocks.
That is the best. That would actually be the best punishment ever. If you're we need to recoup money. You want to know how we're going to do that? Hard Knocks.
Hard Knocks. Yeah.
And then Kyle's, I don't want to do it. I don't care.
You're going to do it, and you know what? You're going to do it with a smile, and you better be entertaining because I'm going to be watching. Don't waste my time.
Oh, dude, that'd be
Jay
awesome.
says RG3 anyone. Kyle breaks him. Oh, yeah, we forgot about RG3. There was him too.
Wasn't that Mike? No.
Yeah, true.
Kyle
was the offensive coordinator.
But Mike didn't like him off the rip. Like, that's another thing is Shanahans don't like talent. They don't like it. They rebuke it.
You're a top 5 pick. Who do you think you are? This guy over here who was not drafted knows the system way better than you. Yeah. I could spit out a play and he can visualize it before you. Ipso facto, he's a better quarterback. Science.
Dude, the Shanahans, like, okay, Mike's thing is he'll always fall. Well, I had Elway. It's like, okay, outside of LA, what talent did you have? You rebuked talent. You had the offensive rookie of the year and you still hated him. Like all the reports of him saying like, well, I still think Kirk's the guy. He just won offensive rookie of the year and you're still saying that you don't want him. Like, what do you guys want? Yeah. But yeah, with Kyle.
They want the credit. I've never seen coaches be more obsessed with credit. Like Andy Reid won 3 Super Bowls. But does he get all the credit? No, a lot goes to Patrick Mahomes. He hasn't won a Coach of the Year award with Kansas City. Yeah. He doesn't freaking care. Patrick, take all the credit. And I'll say Bundle Rooski in a weird voice on television. I love that commercial, by the way. Kyle, I think it's not enough to win. He needs the credit because his dad has 3 rings. 2 as a head coach, 1 as a coordinator. But he's not in the Hall of Fame because John Elway and Terrell Davis get the credit and Steve Young get the credit. And once those guys were gone and he had to build his own team, he couldn't do it. And I think Kyle sees that his dad's not in the Hall of Fame and he's thinking, I want to be in the Hall of Fame. And I don't want the quarterback to maybe I'm wrong because just win the Super Bowl and figure it out later. But his dad won 3 and isn't going to get in ever.
I think it's just simply Kyle doesn't know what to do at quarterback.
That's a better explanation.
I really
simple
just
as that.
don't. I think like it's
a tough like, position that he's a wide receiver who doesn't have the eye for it.
Yeah, like I if I think about it, like especially if they sign one of the Kirk Cousins or Aaron Rodgers, dude, I'll just like bang my head against a wall. Like,
but the difference though is like Andy Reid is literally going to Bloomingdale's to shop for quarterbacks. Where Kyle and Mike are going to Goodwill. And they're like, did you see this quarterback? It's a nickel. A nickel. It's like, why are you even shopping there, man? You're millionaires.
Well, because Kyle he'll probably point it. Well, remember that one time we went to Bloomingdale's and we got the bad one? I don't want to get the bad one again.
Yeah. We spent so much money on it. We never wore it.
See, and this is where if I was Jed York, if I was Jed York, because at this point it's a Jed York thing, I would say, listen, we're going to jump up to get a quarterback. If it goes bad, Kyle, John, blame me. Say I forced you to do it. I don't care. Do that. I want a quarterback. Let's get a quarterback.
That's a mistake. That's a mistake because God, you thought Trey Lance didn't get a shot. You thought RG3 got sabotaged. Wait till you see the third installment of that story. I can't wait. I'm forced to coach this quarterback. Okay, I've been in this position before. Let's go.
I just don't get it. Like, I don't understand how Kyle can be so creative at receive. Because I honestly think he can take most receivers and make them good. But how can you be so bad at quarterback? Like, how can you be so bad at it? I don't get it.
It's a skill he doesn't have. He's a wide receiver. He wishes he were a quarterback, but he wasn't. And Harbaugh was. Kevin O'Connell was.
I wish we kept Harbaugh.
Ben Johnson was. And I think it's a very particular position. It's unlike the other ones. You don't run, you don't hit. Confidence is huge. It's more like almost like a kicker. Like your confidence, your ego is big, and it needs to be big. And I think Andy Reid does a good job of boosting these quarterbacks' confidence and egos, making them feel like they're the greatest in the world. And Kyle's like, who the hell do you think you are? If you forgot, I'm the star here. It's not about you. And I think that's kind of a wide receiver's mentality. If something goes wrong, blame the quarterback. You know what I'm saying? I don't think it helps. And I think maybe you've seen him have instant success, early success, but not prolonged success. And we don't even know if he would have had prolonged success with Matt Ryan. He left.
I mean, and that's the thing, right? Is how maybe that's one of the root causes is Brian Greasy's going to have more of a say in our quarterbacks. Maybe that's one of the root causes. We're going to let our quarterback guy be our quarterback guy because you aren't. Like, I don't know, man. Like, because going back to this injury bug, something has to change with how Kyle coaches, whether it's injuries, whether it's can't find a damn quarterback, whether it's our offensive line sucks, whether it's our culture sucks. All of these come back. Like John's been giving like subliminal messaging the whole time that Kyle is a problem right now.
Mm-hmm.
Team's undisciplined. We've identified the root causes. We have good people. We have good players. What do you have a good head coach?
A good head coach. Say it.
Like every other GM, we have a great head coach. Even Ryan Poles was defending Eberflus. I think we have the coach to do it. I think we have the coach. Yeah. John did not say coach, and he is not dumb, and he's not slick. He knows what he's saying. Like,
I forgot to mention Kyle. Oh,
so we know John knows. And there's no way Jed and Parag aren't pissed at Kyle either. You barged down our door, got us to sign BA. Then obviously we had to sign Trent because we have nothing there anyways. Now you want us to sign Brock or you want us to get whoever.
You didn't draft an offensive tackle, so we had to sign Trent. We could have drafted an offensive tackle, but you didn't think this would happen. You didn't plan ahead.
And now we have to sign other offensive linemen. And now we have to get rid of Hargrave, and we might have to get rid of Mooney, and now we have to get rid of Debo.
Yahafunga.
Like, there's no way the organization is not looking at Kyle like dog.
What did you do? We trusted you.
Yeah. Like
we trusted you.
You promised us.
We let you borrow the car for one night. It's totaled.
Yeah.
You said you were going to the movies and to get ice cream and coming right home. It's totaled.
It's
underwater.
Such a big deal. Kyle barged in the offices and told John Lynch, hang up the phone. Brandon Ayuk's back. And now what?
We were going to trade him. We had the trade. It was going to be a good trade. We were going to be set up. You messed it up. Your fault.
Yeah. And now it's like that story looks dumb. And again, Brandon Ayuk, freak accident. But again, we could have traded him for even more at the draft. We could have traded Debo at the draft for a first-round pick. Like all these things, Kyle, you came to bat for. We even propped you. He wouldn't let us trade Debo. He wouldn't let us trade BA. He wanted his guys.
What was the last thing he was right about?
What? I guess Christian McCaffrey last year.
No, Jed didn't even give him credit for that. Jed didn't even give him credit for that. After the NFC Championship game, he was like, Kyle didn't want to trade for Christian. I had to tell him, man, like, oh, you want the Rams to get him? He said that on the record. He took credit for it. Kyle, your record the last couple of years is looking like a bunch of L's.
Yeah, wait, that is crazy. What is the last thing Kyle's been right about? Because wasn't John and Brian Greasy the one that said, even if you want to say Purdy, John and Brian Greasy
Waiting for Trent Williams was money, but extending him wasn't.
Yeah.
The second time.
The Debo extension didn't work out. The BA extension, I mean, again, freak accident, but it didn't work out. CMC extension.
Drafting
didn't work out.
Debo was the best thing Kyle ever did as a GM. Drafting Debo was a money move. Although you drafted him over AJ Brown, who's just better.
Yeah, I mean, was it a money? Like you had 1 year, so I guess it's how high you value 2021, where you didn't win a Super Bowl. So
you drafted
was it a money
Bosa,
move?
man. Nice,
Dude. When people
Drafted
give
Bosa.
them credit for that, I'm like, who else would they have drafted? How could you have messed up the Bosa pick? Like literally.
I would have taken Josh Allen, the DN, but I mean I invent ways to mess things up. They got it right, and that's what matters. Anyway, that's our show today. It's been a hell of a show. Tyler, you killed it today. I appreciate you, man.
Yeah, thanks for having me again.
Let's go enjoy this game tonight. We didn't even talk about it. I don't think there's anything worth saying.
I mean, we could skate over it. What do you think is going to happen?
They're gonna. I hope they're gonna play some young guys. I'd like to see Jacob Cowan get a pass. I'd like to see Ricky Pearsall get a few passes. I'd like to see Deebo Samuel stop playing. Juszczyk doesn't need to be on the field. He's not going to be on the team next year. Get him off the field and play the young guys.
They'll find a way to bring him back. Kyle will find a way to bring his buddy back. His best man. What is your score prediction?
48 to 20. 17. 48 to 16.
Yeah, I think that's a good one. Dan Campbell seems like he wants blood for this matchup.
It doesn't matter. Even if they win the game 48 to 16, I just don't care. This season's over. They blew it, and let's see what they got in store this offseason. Trade up for Shador or Cam Ward. Make it interesting. Tyler, good stuff.
Yep.